with each other. We are a neutral party that, as I say, just want to inform and educate this evening, just to be clear on our rules. Very simple rules tonight. The key one is a timer. Our timer here is a volunteer timer who's not only a volunteer timer, but is also the executive director of Earthplace, Tony Waddell, so thank you, Tony. He will be holding up cards saying how much time you have left. When each turn ends with the time is up, you will have some successive warnings, and then for any of the audience and any of the candidates, if I say thank you, that means that we really have to move on. The only other rule is really just to please be kind to each other and follow the golden rule, and I think that we will all get along famously tonight. So with that, our format is going to be a 2-minute open. Those audience, you missed the excitement of a picker wheel, but we now know our order in terms of how we're going to go in. There's going to be 2-minute opening statements, or up to 2 minutes, from each of the candidates, first and second Selectman. And then they will also have a 2-minute option to close as well. So we know that order, and then as we get going on the questions, we'll rotate those around. Each question will typically get a 2-minute response and a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity, and we'll just see where our conversation can go from there. All good? Excellent. So we, with our lots, we said team one, so Tucker and Moore, to kick off with 2 minutes each for opening statements.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Good evening. Thank you to Earthplace, Sustainable Westport, and the Westport Library for hosting us. Tonight's conversation is an important one as we discuss critical issues facing the long-term sustainability of our community. Westport has an impressive track record of being a town that is focused on protecting the environment and promoting sustainable practices. We've done a lot, but we know there is much more to do. There is an urgency to this work. So as a result, I want to be clear that I think we can be more ambitious than our original net zero by 2050 goal. It's an excellent and even lofty aspiration back in 2017. However, we now better understand the need for urgency. One of the first tasks of the Tucker-Moore administration will be to identify that new goal. But whatever goal we set, it will require progress on 3 fronts. 1, encourage our residents and businesses to take action in their own households and in the community. Some examples are continuing to encourage composting, reducing water usage, and broader use of solar panels. 2, to continue to manage the Town of Westport's assets in a sustainable fashion. Again, for example, continue to move to electrifying our fleet and prioritize upgrading our buildings to be more sustainable. And 3, to investigate and implement other meaningful projects as we undertake as a community to increase our sustainability and protect both the environment and the community. Resiliency is top of mind. I think about everything from always necessary tree trimming to ensuring our infrastructure is safe and able to survive catastrophic events, to protecting our residents from inundation, whether it be coastal, river, or heavy rainfall. Other meaningful projects would be prioritizing sidewalk construction, increasing EV charging stations, and looking at better public transportation options. The Mark B. Tucker administration has been very focused on net zero by 2050. Again, I would like to reiterate the now better understood urgency on this issue. So as with all things, leadership starts at the top. The Tucker-Moore administration will prioritize action, and I look forward to our discussion tonight.
Right on time.
Well planned. Good evening. Thank you to Earthplace, Sustainable Westport, and the Westport Library for hosting this debate. It's on a very important topic that we should be having and discussing in Westport. I'm Andrea Moore, and I'm currently the Vice Chair of the Board of Finance, a board which I've served on for 4 years. Previously, I was elected to the RTM in District 9, and I served on the Education, Public Protection, and Library and Museum committees. I'm a born and bred Westporter, and I feel very fortunate to be raising my 3 daughters in this coastal town that I've always called home and that I truly love. The environment is, and everything pertaining to it, is an urgent issue in the world we live in and something that we should all be addressing in our everyday lives. Westport has been a forerunner in many positive environmental initiatives over the past several years, many of which we voted on the Board of Finance and the RTM, and that I've voted in favor of. Banning single-use plastic and plastic straws, investing over $1 million in LED traffic lights on our town-owned lights, investing in Teslas and hybrid cars, and adding EV charging stations, implementing composting at the transfer station and encouraging it, investing in key infrastructure projects, and expanding our footprint of sidewalks. We also have recently discussed the use of ARPA funds to address resiliency projects, including tree trimming, the Bering Hill Beach Jetty project, and shoreline enhancements around downtown. Westport has led on many environmental initiatives, but we still have quite a bit to do. As the global climate crisis worsens, we need to be more aggressive in our goals and actions. Westport's goal of being a net zero community by 2050 was a good start, but I believe our community needs to reassess. With the help of Sustainable Westport, my hope is that we can discuss and create an updated plan in the near future. It will take communication, collaboration, and education, all of which the Tooker Moore administration is ready to do day one. I look forward to tonight's discussion.
Thank you very much. Another one to the second, listening to Tony's alarm there. Team 2, Team Elgin and D'Onofrio.
I'm TJ Elgin, and I will be the next selectman. I have the credentials and the passion to make the changes needed and help keep this town green and make it greener. I do believe that it can be changed a lot sooner than 2050 as well. I have a history as a business owner. I have managed staff, balanced budgets. I also am a farmer and an environmentalist. I do want a green Westport, and I do want a town government with transparency. I will make the town truly transparent. A vote for me is a vote for your freedoms and a better Westport, and a greener one. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Louis D'Onofrio. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I own a primary care practice in Bridgeport. I'm also a professor at 2 universities in Connecticut. Prior to me being up here and why I'm up here, I was working as the Director of Clinical Care at the Westport Weston Health District. I greatly enjoyed my passion helping people, and I was very happy to help our community, the one that I'm raising my family and my 2 young children in, during this difficult pandemic. And I feel like I did a tremendous job doing so. I was actually warning about using masks when the CDC was recommending against it, and Dr. Fauci. So I'm really appreciative of what our town has done and got us through, and I'm really appreciative of this debate, and as well as for our hosts for allowing us to be here and have this civil debate. Regarding the green and being green in our environment, with my outspokenness about what happened with the health district, that's how I met Mr. Elgin. And when I first met Mr. Elgin, he came to my house and saw my solar panels, saw my hybrid car, and he saw my garden that he greatly critiqued that needed to be better. We knew we connected. He is an environmentalist, I am as well. We shared about our discussion with the town as why we don't have tons of solar panels on our government buildings. Why don't we have water bottle filling stations throughout the town? My wife is from California, and when we go out there to visit, we see all the wonders that San Francisco has, and we say, why does this city gets it? And there's a lot of things we can learn from that and bring to our town here. We want to be green, we want to be energy efficient, and we will get it done. We recently have federal funding that we can utilize for that, but with the proposals recently, I did not hear any of that going to our environment. I want an environment that's going to be here. I want our town to be sustainable so my children and my children's children can enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And third team, Jonathan Steinberg, count to 7.
Well, thank you so much to Earthplace, to the Westport Library, and to Sustainable Westport for hosting us tonight. Jonathan Steinberg and I are laser focused on making Westport a leading community on the environment. Our top priorities will be 1, proactively fortifying our critical infrastructure against the effects of climate change. 2, investing in effective public transport to reduce both emissions and traffic. 3, protecting our groundwater from dangerous chemicals. And 4, helping our community reach its goal of net zero. Jonathan is a widely acknowledged thought leader on energy and environmental policy. He's been honored again and again for his leadership by the Sierra Club and by the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters. In fact, Lori Brown, the executive director of the League of Conservation Voters, said, and I quote, "Jonathan Steinberg has always been our strongest and most reliable go-to champion at the legislature. That is the kind of leadership Westport can count on." And I share Jonathan's commitment to protecting the environment. From my very first day on the Board of Education, I became a leader in increasing our use of solar energy through roof installations, and I successfully fought to implement a virtual net metering program, which has both saved money for the town and reduced our use of fossil fuels. Good environmental stewardship is an essential element of our Westport values. Jonathan and I have a vision to bring our community forward and a willingness to step out in front to make things happen for the benefit of Westport. Jonathan and I both have proven records of leadership that get results. Together, we'll make Westport better than ever.
Thank you.
I want to start by thanking the library, Earthplace, and Sustainable Westport for putting on this debate. It is critically important to talk about the environment. And I ask you tonight to listen for differences. I submit there's a difference between being environmentally friendly, environmentally supportive, and being environmentally committed and environmentally passionate. As you heard from Candace, my track record is well established. I have been a leading legislator on a range of bills before the legislature. Plastic bag ban, which I was also involved with here in Westport on the RTM, plastic straws, microbeads, fracking waste, the state water plan, shared solar, direct sales of EVs, and I could go on, but I won't. The current administration has been very smart to listen to Sustainable Westport and integrate many of their recommendations into their plans. That's why we're now moving forward with a silver designation with Sustainable Connecticut. But we can do so much more. We should consider solar on all town buildings that are appropriate, reevaluate HVAC and energy systems, promote pollinator pathways and greenways, expand charging stations, encourage recycling and composting, limiting use of pesticides, fertilizers, and PFAS chemicals, consider extended product responsibility in packaging materials, and again, the list goes on. I've been very proud to represent Westport in the legislature because we were a community of environmentally progressives. We used to be a leader. Westport deserves a first selectman who will be an environmental champion, an example to other municipalities on how you can tackle climate change in so many ways. So again, please listen to the quality of the answers. There are real differences between us. We've understood all the time that we need to focus on sustainability. This is not news to us. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your opening comments. So we've got some questions that will probably start in the general level and then drill into some interesting issues, and then we'll sort of wrap up in time for some close. But we've got time to get into, first at the top level, I think just about everybody, including myself on the introduction, mentioned the Westport goal of being net zero by 2050. And a number of you were pushing on that, that was a good start rather than the finish. Would like to ask, and in order here, on first team 2, and then 3, then 1. So in this order, what year do you think is right for Westport if the world has to be net zero by 2050, as per the science, or better? What do you think Westport should target as a year? And what do you think we need to do, particularly to accelerate our progress? So we're going to start with Elgin. And as a team, go for it. You have the time.
I honestly think if we can do it within the next 9 years, I think 2030 is a lot better of a marker point to aim for, if not sooner. But we have a lot of things we can implement between now and then. We can do a lot more hands-on education. We don't utilize enough of the students, the resourceful students, and the resourceful residents of this town. If we make it more open communication, hey, we need to do this, we need to make this a point to get this done. Everybody in this town lives in this town because they love the town. So it's just more about outreach and educating quicker.
Okay.
Yeah, great point. Since I moved to Westport, I found that the people in town are amazing, passionate people. And a lot of what we have in common is really the care and love for our environment and our town. And I feel like we can absolutely get this done a lot sooner by pulling our resources together and really making strides. When Mr. Elgin and myself were campaigning, we found that when we were talking about our environmental issues, which even though we're not running on the green ticket, people thought we were because of how passionate and strong we are. Even on our website at votewestport.com, you can see our platform about going green. And this was one of our first principal points that we discussed about. We want to get this done. We think it can get done sooner, and there's no time like the present. And you know, we can play Monday morning quarterback all we want, but really, we need to drive this forward. And we have federal funding on the pipeline. That's a great way to start. We want to be sustainable. We want to be able to, again, make our town you know, even more beautiful. And what's more beautiful than saying that we're the greenest in Connecticut? And I think we'll get there, absolutely.
Okay.
The word you heard tonight already is urgency, and I think it's evident that 2050 is too far a goal if we're going to save this planet. We've already seen that the temperatures continue to rise, sea levels continue to rise. China is continuing to use more coal, and we are still way too dependent on fossil fuels. It's not simply a matter of 2050 or 2040, it's also our interim goals. The Governor's Climate Change Council has been trying to connect the dots between what the ultimate goal is and the interim goals we need to achieve, including converting our transportation fleet to electric vehicles. We have a long ways to go on that. We've noticed here in Westport that groundwater has risen by as much as 9 inches, creating problems for basements and homeowners across the town. This is manifest right here in our community. We've seen both droughts and flooding. The more people I talk to in town, the more I hear there are flooding issues all over town, an issue we have not addressed in our community in terms of taking care of pipes and culverts, dealing with coverage issues. This is manifest now, and it's only going to get worse. I submit that everyone in our community has a role to play, but leadership comes from the top. If we're going to achieve our long-term goals, if we're going to contribute to be part of the solution, everybody has a role to play, and we need leadership from our selectmen here in Westport to set the stage, to be a model, and to help us understand, to educate us on how we can move forward safely from protecting our homes to being good environmental stewards and being good neighbors. This is all still in front of us. There are so many issues we can talk about here today, but I think 2050 is a chimera. We must be setting much more short-term goals that we can actually achieve if we're going to be successful.
Hey, your team.
Great, thank you, Peter. Well, clearly I said in our opening statement that we believe that 2050 is not the right year and not the right goal, and that we do believe the work ahead of us is more urgent. And you know, there are so many different fronts that we need to work on in this arena. I mean, we can start with certainly, I believe that we have a lot of issues that we need to address when it comes to renewable and clean energy. I think that that's where we can absolutely move the needle a little bit more than we have currently. I do think that we also have, as a community, a lot more work to do on waste. I believe that we had a great start with our zero waste program that we've been running, that Sustainable Westport has been running for the community, but there's much more to do there as well. And I would agree, while there are things to do within, as I mentioned before, in the 3 different areas, while there are certainly things to do and progress to make on managing our town assets in a more sustainable fashion, I really do think that the importance of really bringing in our community, our residents, and our businesses to the table to talk about practical solutions and initiatives that can really move the needle. I think that's incredibly important. Everybody does have a role to play. Everybody must play a role as we move forward on sustainable initiatives.
Thank you. Anyone that hasn't spoken, yes, go for it, Candace.
Well, I agree that accelerating the 2050 goal is essential, but I don't feel that we should be congratulating ourselves too much about doing that, because really the private sector has accelerated for us in a lot of ways. And renewable energy is becoming more and more available. Technologies have improved and become more economical. So absolutely, we should be accelerating. But the harder lift is preparing for the realities of climate change. I know we're going to talk about that more tonight, but I think that's where we really essentially need focused leadership who's willing to step up and commit resources and lead the community to prepare. Because, as I have said repeatedly through this campaign, the future's coming, whether we prepare for it or not, and I prefer that we prepare.
Thank you.
I would like to add, so we can say a lot of things about what we want to move forward. We can plan and project, but a lot of times we need action. And that's one thing Mr. Elgin is about. He wants to get the ball rolling. And so and I believe it was an October 10th press release that we sent out from our campaign, he stated that the recent Selectman's pay raise, that amount, which was about $45,000, he's going to donate to local charities, nonprofits that are all about sustainability and improving our environment to fight global warming. And he asked the other candidates in that press release to they themselves make that vow to donate that money in order to help our environment. We still haven't heard a response from the other candidates, but I am really appreciative that Mr. Elgin wants to take action, and that's just one of the many ways he plans to take action with helping our environment.
Okay. Yeah, one more quick rebuttal.
Just for
Yeah.
a point of emphasis, I want to stress once again the importance of education. I think homeowners and businesses want to do the right thing, but oftentimes they lack the tools in order to take action. I've been involved with the Septic System Education Task Force, where we try to help homeowners deal with their septic systems. I think that's a model we can use in other cases. Our Conservation Department and our Planning Zoning Commission need to work with developers and with homeowners to either build buildings the right way or retrofit them so they are resilient in that fashion. And when it comes to flooding, we need to help homeowners who may not know they even have pipes under their property, let alone maintain them or have them in good shape going forward. This is a comprehensive effort that requires a plan. We once thought we were going to have sustainability built into everything we had in town government through our town plan of conservation and development. That hasn't happened. We need to put sustainability first once again.
Thank you. Let's move on then. And again, at any time you think you've got a rebuttal or you like a quick point to make, Tony's timer goes off on a shorter clip, and we can keep the conversation moving. But I think some of you have touched on this already. The negative impacts that we're already seeing from climate change, obviously tragically in the world at large, often with the people that least afford it, but here also in town. What do you see that concerns you most on the impacts of climate change here in Westport? And if you feel like you've answered that already, go straight to a sort of a follow-up question. It's like from this first question, which is like, what are your 90-day sort of hitting the ground running? What are you going to do first? This will start in the middle, and then we'll go to near and then far.
It's a great question. I've been having conversations with groups of citizens lately. I met with a group that is very concerned about the continued flooding of Dead Man's Brook. The town actually secured a grant and spent a lot of money examining the problems there, came up with recommendations, and that plan is sitting on the shelf. Yeah, it's complicated. Yes, it's expensive, but doing nothing is not a solution. That's not the only neighborhood where we have flooding issues. We really have discovered this problem with pipes under properties where homeowners don't even know they have them or are responsible. We've had issues with the town not maintaining culverts sufficiently. This is a whole comprehensive effort we need to have. The town of Madison, Connecticut has a resilience commission that is looking at all sorts of resilience issues. They've actually mapped their low-lying areas to determine where critical infrastructure may need to be relocated or how they help homeowners with the issues that they have. Westport needs a resilience commission as well, and we need a plan. The hazard mitigation plan, which is a regional effort led by WestCog, is not effective for telling Westport what it needs to do to go forward. I've also met with some neighbors who are very concerned about clear-cutting of trees on properties and impacts of regrading properties as they build taller houses. This is another broad issue. Both new houses and old homes have issues with flooding that we must work as a community. We must be good neighbors if we're going to address.
Thank you. Go for it.
Great. Thank you, Peter. So yes, I think that most residents, if you would ask them, do you believe that we are experiencing more frequent, more severe storms? I would say most would answer yes to that. And when we think about resiliency as a town, we think about it in three different ways. First, access. Second, drainage. And third, educating residents and business owners on how to harden the defenses of their own personal property. So when I say access, that means we have undertaken quite a long program, and we're in the middle of it, of rehabbing and redoing and reconstructing our bridges to ensure that when we have a severe weather event, that we actually have access to all of our residents. We've currently restructured and reconstructed 6 bridges, and we have probably about the same number on the capital forecast going forward. Secondly, when we talk about drainage, that really is the flooding piece, and that really is a concerted effort between P&Z and the new regulations they have on new homes. Conservation, a commission that I sat on for 2.5 years when I first moved here. So protecting our wetlands, understanding retention, excuse me, and engineering department and flood and erosion control board, understanding how the flooding does happen and does occur. Stream management sits in that bucket as well, which is an incredibly difficult, based on how developed Westport is, stream management is an incredibly difficult task to undertake. So we do have lots of different departments that are working very hard on the drainage piece and will continue to do so. And then lastly, educating and working with and consulting with our local residents on how to harden their own property assets, residents and business owners.
Thank you. So impacts and 90-day priorities.
Say that again?
The question was on the impacts, what do you see right now that concerns you most, and the 90-day priority,
And the 90-day
priorities to fix that.
So I don't believe that we can overnight, even in 90 days, fix the flooding issues. But I believe making a game plan and making ways to go about it for funding and building it out. Just think about it. Every town meeting, once a month, things take time. We need to speed up that process and make more, I agree, building more of a focus point committee to oversee that often, more than like as weekly as possible. But my plan would be is look into dredging, look into hydroelectric dams, and look into where we can plumb the water that does flow over into different areas that are not involved in any commercial, any citizens, anybody's pathway, and kind of divert the flow of water. And then within the 90 days, I could definitely get a recycling program, trash, pick up that operating and going really quickly.
Absolutely, and within the 90 days, something Mr. Elgin's also championed quite often is having more frequent farmers markets for in the town. Westport used to be an amazing onion farming community, and we need to bring back some of that farming mindset. Not everyone needs to have a farm in their yard, of course, but having locally farm-supported businesses in town seeking out business and being utilized is critical. As we're seeing now, there's shortages within stores. Having local farms are much needed, and these people were suffering quite a bit during the pandemic when businesses were getting shut down. Mr. Elgin used his nonprofit to keep them afloat and sustainable, just so they can keep thriving today. And we need to thank those community people by allowing them to have farmer markets and sell their goods. That's something we can do right away to support our community, as well as plan to see what we can do in the immediate for these types of situations, because we don't want flooding. I have family that suffered great loss during some of these floods in Connecticut, and we need better. We need to prepare better.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to go back with a couple that haven't spoken yet, and just maybe pick up on that second piece of the question that I didn't necessarily hear super clear. The 90-day priorities, like what are you going to do in the first 90 days? If you can roll that in. So Candace, did you?
Oh, well, I wanted to add something to the
You can add and rebut as well. Yeah, go for it.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay.
but I'm still looking for the 90 days. I got quite a few items there. So yes, go for it.
Okay, well, I just wanted to emphasize that another issue that we're facing with the effects of climate change are, of course, more frequent major storms. And I just want to underscore that we can do a lot better in this area in Westport. For example, with Storm Isaias that we suffered most recently, we were struggling as a town to get results from Eversource, to get in touch with Eversource. And it was Jonathan Steinberg who was able to come in and make that connection and move things forward. So I think that's a powerful example of the advantages that Jonathan would have as selectman with his very strong connections to the state government and to state utilities, based on his experience and personal relationships. And in addition, unfortunately, the town was really ill-prepared for that event. We did not have the crews in place and on hand that we needed to partner with Eversource to restore power to our community in a timely fashion, and we can never let that happen again. We must commit the resources that we need. We must manage our resources effectively because these storms are going to be more and more frequent.
Great. Thank you. And I'm still looking for 90 days from the middle. Go for it.
Okay.
Andrew.
Yeah, I was just getting ahead on that since Jen didn't
Sure.
get to it about 90 days. There's not going to be a lot of progress necessarily in correcting some of the issues we're facing, but in the first 90 days of administration, the first thing we would do is talk to people. You would talk to department heads, meet, discuss the issues, speak with various different commissions, organize meetings that we already have set up, speak with Sustainable Westport, talk to them about their ideas, hopefully get moving forward on some of these planning things we've talked about. So this job is, the first Selectman is about communicating and collaborating and educating, or at least part of it is, and that would be the first 90 days of the administration.
Thank you.
I would like to add,
Yeah.
I would just like to question, I don't think Mr. Steinberg actually had the Eversource lines put up a little bit quicker. I think that's a falsity for sure. I remember last year I had no power for 8 days, living off a generator, all my food in my fridge going bad. Those lines weren't put up any faster either. I know that in Hartford, him and his friends actually voted for increasing Eversource rates, as well as with UI, with Governor Lamont signing off on that. And that was something done in Hartford around the same exact time we lost our power during the beginning of a pandemic. He favored price increases, so I don't think that's actually going to be helping our community at all. We need transparency, we need truth, and there's very little we can do when the entire state has no power and trees on personal property fell on lines. We just have to do our best to educate our community, make sure the town line trees, there's no trees over the town lines, and try to prepare. I know with the health district, there were one site that during heat waves, even during these disasters, they're refusing to be a cooling station. They didn't even have Wi-Fi to give to the community until I started working there 2 years ago and got it under a grant fund. But they were able to offer that to the community to have a Wi-Fi station. Other than that, they didn't even have that. So we just need. Okay.
Yeah, it's an overtime. And just on a point of like how we address, there's definitely different opinions on the facts, but I prefer I would dispute that version rather than falsity for sure, because nobody's for sure. But I do want to offer Jonathan Steinberg a reply.
Just to clarify on Candace's point, legislators were not invited during that storm to the Emergency Operations Center, as had been the case during previous administrations. So therefore, it was a couple days before I was able to actually contact the first selectman and to be helpful on Eversource, and that's why there was a delay. But let's talk about the 90 days. Certainly, as I described, we would start a resilience commission to start dealing with these issues all over town, and also educate both consumers and businesses. We would immediately do a deep dive on our schools, both with the existing Tools for Schools program, look at HVAC systems, filtration, ventilation, circulation, which are real issues. We would re-examine our virtual net metering projects to see if we could do more renewable energy and energy efficiency projects in all of our town buildings, because there's still opportunity out there. We have not optimized that. There are probably a few more things, but those are 3 off the top.
Thank you very much. Any other quick rebuttals before we move on? I think seeing you got to be quick on your hands, because I will say seeing none. I'm going to move on and actually pick up on a couple of points that you've made and hop around our agenda here. But because let's take a huge sort of thread through your last few answers on flooding, storm resilience, and pieces like that across the piece here. And let's take storm Asias. And one of the pieces that we've noticed in sort of the sustainability circles is about the inability for essential workers to live here. So what's your opinion in terms of resilience on affordable housing and how we can be more resilient if we have the workers that are designed to work on the problem being able to live in the town that they serve in? I'm going to start with 1, and then 2, then 3.
That's a good question, Peter. I absolutely, definitionally, as part of resilience, is to make sure that we have a diverse housing stock here in Westport. But to be clear, to draw some sort of connection to storm recovery is probably not the appropriate connection to draw from a standpoint of having diverse housing and being more capable of recovering from a storm. That connection doesn't really translate. But what I will say is it is absolutely critical as part of a community and our long-term resilience and our long-term sustainability to have diverse housing and to ensure that we have not only diverse housing, but proper transportation and proper modes of transportation as well associated with that. And I think that's incredibly important as far as being a sustainable community going forward.
Great. I just wanted to, the question was a link to sustainable housing, not the link to sustainable
Got
housing,
it. Sorry.
just to be clear. But thank you. Let's go to two.
Sure, I'll start. So I am one of these, I guess you would call essential workers per state definition. In emergency, I'm a healthcare worker. I need to get to the hospital. I need to get to the office. So I know how difficult it could be when you live far away. So to answer your question regarding that, when I used to be employed at Yale New Haven Hospital, when we lived rather far and it was our shift, it was our time we needed to provide coverage, we actually had transportation provided from the hospital. So in a disaster or some type of horrific event, we can easily set up some type of like SUV four-wheel drive vehicles that hopefully can get those workers that live far away to our town to help us during an emergency, as well as planning ahead of time. If there's a disaster, paying staff overtime to stay in town on premise so they can get to work right away, maybe having bunks overnight, finding locations they can stay, bunker down in order to be here to help us, and paying them appropriately for that. It just basically planning. The quick answer isn't provide housing for everybody that lives outside of town, that works in town. I think that's a goal that would be really difficult to accomplish, but really we just need to have foresight, think ahead. If people are willing to, have them stay overnight, pay them for their ability to stay with us and help us promptly during a disaster. That's what we do in hospitals. That's what we should do in local government.
You've got a little bit of time left just to maybe just get the more general answer that Ms. Tucker went for. So that gets me on the storms, but how about the more general equity approach to sustain affordable housing in Westport?
Well, you have to look at it. How are you going to ask people to risk their lives for a community without living in it and without being a part of it? I feel like we need to be more inclusive and find different ways to make things affordable for our first responders. We keep talking about affordable housing and all these buildings that we want to put up, but no one's talking about how we're going to, why is that not affordable for our first responders? So that's an issue, and I think being elected, we could revamp that. But we should also be focusing on building more of a volunteer response team as well. We have CERT, but it should be revamped a bit and focused on.
Thank you very much.
Years ago, when I was on the RTM, the town was talking about building workforce housing on Barron South. We were very excited by the prospect and really thought we'd be doing a good thing. But we did a survey, which was a smart move. What we learned is that many of our workforce workers here, whether they're police, fire, EMS, and teachers, didn't necessarily want to live in Westport because it was expensive in so many other ways, and they couldn't have very large homes. They'd rather have a big yard in Monroe than living in a small apartment in Westport. And we didn't realize that until we asked the question. But there are other things that we can do. We can make transportation to Westport from where they live reliable and consistent so that they can get here in a reasonable period of time, particularly when we need them for a storm. It was critically important that we've used the senior center as an emergency center for workers and others to rest between shifts, and that's something we probably need to expand. We need to make sure that when we build houses with a variety of types, even affordable housing, including townhouses. Not everything has to be a big apartment building. So we started doing some of that, and I think we've got to give our Planning and Zoning Commission a lot of credit for putting us on the right path with affordable housing. It shows that you can do the right thing with local control. And we've done a really nice job in trying to build a variety of affordable housing where it probably makes the most sense, along the post road where we have the infrastructure, it's consistent with smart growth principles, but I submit we have to improve our mass transit so they're not as reliant on cars and we're not adding traffic. All these things come together when we have a storm and we put great stress on our community. We need to have our workers ready and able. We need to anticipate storms so that we don't get caught trying to catch up at the last minute. We have to make it possible for our workers to perform their jobs, including partnering with Eversource, and get the adequate rest they need so they can be effective. We can do a lot better than we have to this point.
Good, thank you. And any other points you think are missing?
I would like to add a point.
Go for it.
So this goes down to I think the root point that we really need to show our town employees and our workforce that we appreciate them. And I know from the Harvard standpoint, there's legislation that was passed, by maybe someone on the stage, but that our lovely police officers started having more accountability. We're being allowed to have the option of being sued by civilians more freely individually. That legislation was passed, and we are in a town that our police officers had their pensions taken away. These are things that Mr. Elgin and myself want to address. We want police pensions. We want police officers and our first responders to know that they're here to help us and we're here to help them. In order to get their back, for them to get our back, we really need to protect them. And now we need police more than ever in our town. There's 3 car break-ins on my private road alone in the past 2 weeks. 3. And a year and a half ago, a stabbing. And the sad thing is, that can't narrow down where I live. Most people can argue that they had car break-ins recently too. So these are, again, a little off topic, but we need to care about our
That's exactly what I was about to say, but thank you very much for doing my job as well. Anybody else want to stay back on the respond to any of the key points there on the housing? Nope. Link, one more question on water, and then we might move around. So we've done the water and the flooding. Sort of what happens here in town. Nutrient pollution is a major threat to the health of Long Island Sound. What actions should Westport take to restrict or limit the use of fertilizers in public or private property? I'm going to, if we started at 1 there, we're going to do. We start with team 2.
Yeah. So you can eliminate fertilizers for the most part. There's a lot of natural things that you can utilize to change and alter the dirt to different needs for growing different plants. So that's something that I do all over the state. Is I help different farms cultivate different life for different purposes. So it's very simple to get rid of a lot of the toxins, a lot of the pesticides, a lot of the things that we don't necessarily need that do leach into the water.
So there's plenty of time here. So just phrasing the question: what actions would you take if you got the role?
I would ask the town a general question of this is what I can do with arranging just the dirt and different minerals for use without toxicities, and we can allot that for any growth and development in the town as soon as I'm in office.
Yeah, sometimes just educating our local farmers about what needs to be done and what should be done, rather than just jumping into a law. We can offer free soil testing in order to help gear people to a better direction using specialists, and that's what Mr. Elgin, again, is an expert in. He can use his knowledge in farming to help get us on a more sustainable, healthy, safe path.
Well, also some years ago, I co-chaired a group called the Greenscapes Action Project that was intended to try to convince homeowners to reduce the use of pesticides and fertilizers so that they weren't wedded to their green swards and we're actually thinking broadly about the environment. The reason why that's critical is because fertilizer and pesticides end up in our rivers and cause eutrophication or deoxidization of our rivers and streams, meaning that we're killing our fish and our flora. And Connecticut was doing well for a number of years. Long Island Sound was doing well, but we backslid. And it's not just Westport, it's other communities that are upstream as well. Well, we really need to convince people that there are alternatives to planting Kentucky bluegrass, other kinds of shrubs and grasses that are beautiful and offer real alternatives. We need to educate people. We also need to do better as government. We use too much pesticides on our right-of-ways by public works. We use it on our golf courses and our parkways. We don't need to use those pesticides and fertilizers as much. There are organic alternatives we should be using.
Thank you.
So when I sat on the Conservation Commission, I guess it was probably 2000, I moved here in 2008, so 2009 to 2011. A gentleman by the name of Marty Yellen was also on the Conservation Commission with me as well, and this was his really important issue, was the overuse of fertilizers, and because of the damage, because of it washing into our waterways and the damage it does, the long-term damage. And, you know, he really was a force behind an educational program for Westport. And I do think this is an issue of education. I do think homeowners can make different choices if they understand what the choices are and if they understand the damage that pesticides does actually to the environment. So I think this is something that would be certainly something we could team up with Sustainable Westport on from a standpoint of really reaching our residents and hoping to make sure they understand the effects.
Any quick additions? Yes, go for it, Candace.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that another major threat to our waterways is sewage. So we've had some struggles in Westport, as everyone I'm sure knows, where we've had, due to climate change effects and rising flooding and rising sea levels, we've had sewage spills into our water sources, and that infrastructure is not up to the standards it needs to be to prevent this sorts of things in the future. I think this is a good opportunity for the use of ARPA funds. There was a very strong sentiment in the community at the initial hearings about the use of ARPA funds that we need to focus more on resiliency and dedicate funds to improving our resiliency for climate change going forward.
Great, thank you.
I would like to add to the history of Connecticut and the Sound is a lot of companies did some corrupt things, and sometimes they do that. Just a full disclosure for transparency, our campaign's been running on nothing but local funded contributions, small contributions from residents. We have no large businesses, no corporations that made a single donation. And Mr. Elgin and myself also said that if any company did give us a large donation or contribution, we would actually return it, because we want the town of Westport to know that we are Westporters and that we are doing this for the passion of our town, not for any corporation.
Is this the second off-topic answer?
It is, but I feel like it won't
It's
get.
just
I
not
won't
an
be able to address
environmental
it.
debate, and it's not the question. But if you can wrap
But,
comments like that into your closing, you can wrap comments like that into your closing, and let's keep to the questions.
But sticking to the environment.
Please just stop right now, and we can wrap it into the closing, because you didn't, or start with the answer and go slightly off later. So let's keep on waste if we can, because waste, because we've come at it from different angles now. So around the world, and especially in Connecticut, is an issue. With the help of Sustainable Westport, but town residents as well, there is, as I think many of you have mentioned, a thriving zero food waste program, albeit in its early stages. Westport Public Schools now has a 3-year line item in their budget for composting. So what do you think should be done further to divert solid waste from disposal? And we also all know that sort of single stream recycling isn't working as intended. So how are you going to fix that, and how might you actually sort of get either more compliance or more implementation? Where can you go on that? So sort of what are you going to do on waste? And for this one, we're going to start with Steinberg and 7, and then loop back.
Well, I agree with you, Peter. Single stream recycling, if you call that, is over. The Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection is working on a comprehensive wastewater management plan now that we can't ship all our refuse to China or India. We need to have a plan for our community, and the students at Saugatuck Elementary School showed us the way by their composting project. They shamed me into start doing composting, and it gets easier with time. You separate your organics, you're now in a position to do more separation of various materials that actually have value if they're separated cleanly and carefully. It's an education process. It's very hard to change behaviors once we've gotten used to single stream. To teach people now they need to separate out those items. We've been to the dump, as our opponents have as well, and it's always interesting to see how dedicated and knowledgeable so many of our residents are for how to separate the materials. Some of them are not so knowledgeable and they need a little bit of help. But we really need a plan which goes beyond the concept of simply single stream. We need to do something about plastic bottles. The legislature passed a bottle bill this year which sustains our recycling centers. That's only the beginning of the conversation. We need to separate out glass and various types of plastic. We need a plan in which it's easier for people to work with their garbage haulers to do it in a responsible fashion. That's all still in front of us.
Great. Thank you very much. Christine.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So we, the Tooker household we have been composters since the moment we moved here. And we actually have quite a, I would say, cumbersome to some people, composting process as a family. And we don't think it's cumbersome, but when newcomers come and take a look at it and sort of say, well, can you help walk me through how you built your compost and what you do? Others get a little freaked out about it. But so, these are lifestyle choices that families can make. And it's absolutely something that was started, and I think that the communication, I've been part of the communication. Our compost system has been shown as part of as an exemplary example of composting in a household. So we've been part of the communication around the Zero Food Waste initiative, but I think that the next place we need to take it to get more traction as a community is to our businesses. I think that is the next place we need to take it. I think we need to have conversations around the table. I know a lot of our business owners. I do know that I think they would be not only happy to have a composting discussion, I think they would be very happy to have a discussion around more specific recycling as well. So that's, I think, where we need to take the conversation.
Thank you very much. Team Elgin.
So reducing waste, easy enough, pushing the town-wide recycling and trash pickup, but also making a refurbish and upcycle center. There's a lot of waste that isn't necessarily waste that goes into the recycling center. I think that there could be a project there to create an upcycle business out of that. For the water bottles and plastic waste, single use, town initiative on getting fill stations everywhere would be a great step for plastic bottles. A big issue with the plastic, removing all plasticware, get more into plant-based plasticware. I'm in the hemp industry, and we're focusing on a lot of biomass and biodegradable products created out of that, like paper, rope, different utensils, all that are true biodegradable.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to be sustainable as much as possible. At my household, as well as Mr. Elgin, we compost, we do everything we can individually, but it's a townwide effort, and I believe that we all concur that education at a townwide basis is needed.
Got it. Any ads? Yes, Candace.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for raising the fact that the Westport Public Schools have been leading the way on composting, led by the kids. So that's very inspiring. And I actually think it raises an important point that we all need to keep in mind. We know there's been an enormous increase in anxiety and depression among our youth, some pandemic related, but even before the pandemic. And one of the main drivers is anxiety about climate change and this sort of apocalyptic future that they fear. And I think one of the best things we can do to help our children is to show them that we're taking action and trying to make a difference for their futures. And I would just add that we don't actually have a composting center here in town in Westport. We have to have services come in and take it to an off-site location, which makes it quite expensive. So if we could create that here in town, I think that would make a big difference.
If I could just add for 10 seconds, I think Mr. Elgin is onto something with procurement, both for businesses and for the town. The concept of extended product responsibility, use of packaging materials, getting away from styrofoam and a lot of other products, we can reduce the amount of packaging we use, which has a big impact on the waste stream.
Thank you. Good, quick add. And I just wanted to come back before we leave waste. I didn't get an answer from the two of you in terms of, but a very clear one from the middle in terms of single stream is over. We need to teach the town to multi-task recycling. What are your two views there?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think on this whole issue of a lot of the things we're talking tonight, it's really about educating people. People want to do the right thing here. People are very aware, but they're also very busy. So I think we can do a better job of communicating to our residents through your organization, through the town, just trying to educate people on what they should be doing to help.
And then the second half of the question was compliance. How do we ensure compliance if education's not enough?
I'm optimistic that education's enough. I'm not sure I'm going to talk about punishing people.
We have a very smart community. One thing that we advocated for in the past was actually like some type of town-wide recycling refuse services. And in doing so, you can actually help monitor these things and regulate, and again, offer that education and help those people that are doing it themselves right now, bringing it to the waste station and putting it all together because of time management, or they're on the go, they're not able to separate it, making it easier at the home for those people, especially that can't afford it. This would be a great way, because when people have to pay for their own home refuse and recycling pickup, it gets costly, and especially after a pandemic. Some people, that's something that they cut out of their budget. But we believe that we have a strategy in place to implement that, to help people at home to have town collection, which would include recycling and being able to educate the community and picking it up separately at their home.
I would also encourage people to start bringing their own utensils, literally metal, easy to clean, some sanitizer, ethanol. That's another way.
And then, before we leave this topic, education enough or enforcement?
I think most Westporters want to do the right thing. We're a very progressive community, but it may come to enforcement, and it's just how you go about doing that. I would much rather use incentives than penalties.
Thank you. Let's move on to transportation, another hot topic, especially if people sort of read our flyer and promised that we would be asking about it. So what can Westport do to reduce its transportation sector emissions? What are the things that you would do, for instance, to accelerate electric vehicles, public transport? You've touched on a few of these things already. So we want the basically the priorities on transportation. What do you think is facing Westport right now? This time we're going to start with Team Tucker.
Right. So this has been, our traffic and congestion problems is top of mind for everybody right now. I'm sure, looking out in the audience, there isn't a person here tonight who hasn't been frustrated, probably within the last hour, by traffic in Westport. And so I think there are, and it would be really great if there was just one single solution to the problem, but there isn't. And so I think there are a couple ways to get at the congestion on our roads, which then, of course, results in problems with our air quality and problems with the environment. I think that we are absolutely committed to prioritizing sidewalks around our schools. A great part of the pandemic is that more and more people are walking their kids to school. I think you guys see that. So we are prioritizing sidewalks around schools, around downtown. The pedestrianization of various parts of downtown are incredibly popular. We'd like to actually broaden that out. And then sidewalks around our recreational facilities. So that's one way to get at this problem, and it's a longer-term way. Certainly another way is to, and this is very troublesome, and it's not easy, but to continue to investigate how we would incorporate more bike lanes, so people have options to move around in that manner as well. And then, of course, we have, I would imagine this crowd knows that we have the highest number of Teslas on a per capita basis here in Westport. We take our electric vehicles really seriously. The Tucker household has one as well in our driving arsenal. And I think that we have done a really great job, especially members of Sustainable Westport, in promoting EVs, and there's plenty more work to do there as well. And I ran out of time because there's so much to talk about.
Excellent. Let's see. On to Team Elgin.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, it was just saying, what could Westport do to reduce its transportation sector emissions? What are your priorities on reducing transportation sector emissions?
Well, I would focus a lot, since we're a big commuter town, I would focus a lot more on ride share, even if the town helps build out a program to create that, because the schedules are set, so you have X amount of people hitting each train, so you can make a town-wide transit system using a ride share program and just communicate to the town that we want to build it out and figure out where the most commuters are and where the most transit makes sense for that. I do agree we should have sidewalks everywhere because a lot of people do like just being out roaming around. For the congestion, earlier statements, another post was, I believe we can do a lot more for traffic reduction by promoting little way stations throughout the town that promote different plazas, different shopping and food areas to get people to drive traffic more to the commerce. And I think that would help reduce a bit too.
Thank you.
Well, Westport's made some progress in converting its fleet where appropriate to electric vehicles, but we still have a long ways to go. Electric buses, they're coming. They used to be too expensive, but they're coming to Connecticut and the price is coming down. It's time for us to consider that as part of our capital budget so that we can make that conversion. That'll save a lot of energy. Too many people are stuck in traffic getting to the schools, idling, carbon emissions. So maybe we need to actually look at mass transit that might include after-school programs. We used to use school buses to get kids to after-school programs. It turned out we couldn't do that, but why couldn't we use mass transit to accomplish a lot of those ends? We have to consider mass transit as part of the solution. When I was growing up in Westport, we had the minibus. It was a safe way to get from Staples to downtown. It connected our key centers of Saugatuck and downtown, and we could add Campo and Longshore, maybe the grocery store, maybe medical appointments, get people out of their cars. There are many things we could do, and we have to talk about traffic more broadly, which I don't have time to do.
That's right. I do have a couple of ones just to pick up on some rapid fire answers here. Rideshare, there is the excellent Wheels to You right now, but it's not very sustainably funded, it would seem, from the outsiders looking in. What would you do to ensure the stability of the funding?
If I might?
Yes, go for it. Yeah, it's a quick fire answers. So hand second, you're second.
Okay.
There you go for it.
Unfortunately, the Board of Finance has treated mass transit like a profit maker instead of a public good that should be subsidized. We have to be prepared as a community to subsidize this public good, which means that we can reduce fares to the point where they're affordable, and that also would get more riders, which means we'd have greater ridership, greater frequency, and we could actually expand routes. It all starts with actually being prepared to invest in a real mass transit program in Westport.
Great. And next, sorry,
I would
just
say as a member of the Board of Finance, you are correct. We have looked at that over the years, and it has not been economically viable. Plus the fact that we've been running empty buses around town on routes for some time, which is not good for the environment. There have been some adjustments with the Wheels to You program, which is interesting and seems to be getting some legs, but I think it's too early to tell on that one. We are in favor of finding a mass transit solution, but at this point, we have not been able to, I don't believe we've been able to find that. I also just wanted to add in terms of people on the roads, a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic going to our schools because people aren't putting their kids on the buses. So that is a traffic issue for us. That's something we as a community should be addressing and us as parents should be doing, because that's a small piece that we could be doing to help the environment as well as help the traffic situation.
this team here, do you want to pick up on the rideshare funding?
Yeah, sure. We said in our last debate, and we'll say it again, we are extremely fiscally responsible, and we will look through our budget and get rid of any wasteful spending in order to allow us to ensure that we have money that goes to places that it's beneficial to help our environment and to help our community. One thing I would second to Ms. Moore, the school buses have been an issue. I know that for my own daughter, we missed the bus, or it's been 30, 40 minutes late, and we didn't want her to be late for school, so we had to drive her. It's one of those things where public transportation, if we do put a big investment in it, will people utilize it? And again, that's that education piece, really stressing the importance of its utilization and seeing if the routes are going to where people need to go. A simple mail survey, sending it out to the residents saying, if you use transportation, where would you use it to? And strategizing a mapping system of where we can better utilize it based on what our citizens want, what our residents want. That's how we can ensure that it would be hopefully utilized better.
Got it. I mean, the current rideshare is a sort of as almost like an Uber sort of comes to you. So it's traffic. It's load optimized. But I'm hearing three slightly different answers there, which is excellent for people that are watching potentially. Like subsidize a public good, fiscally responsibility is a priority, and too early to tell. It's not economically viable yet.
Can I add one thing to that, or is that against the rules?
There can be two quick adds. Yeah, I heard.
Okay.
One then two. Because
we also at the Board of Finance last night we were discussing an option for some of the ARPA funds, which would be a bus that would connect communities, a shopping loop. It's something that the administration proposed as part of the spending. It would be on a trial basis. We've sent it back to the people working on it, to Elaine and Human Services, to get a little bit more detail. But that is another way that we can, an opportunity to use busing in Westport.
Just very short, go for it.
Okay,
Same
I
thing.
was just going to follow on that to say that we need to try things. We need to be willing to experiment, to step out in front and see if something works. Because just because something was not successful in the past, the world has changed quite a bit. Obviously, the pandemic has brought a ton more people into town. People are working from home, driving around all day. As Andrea mentioned, a lot of people aren't putting their kids on the bus because of concerns around COVID. So traffic is much worse. So we may have more of a market for mass transit option. So we got to keep trying.
Great, thank you very much. There's so many more sort of topics down at that level that we could go into. There's all energy, and all the sort of transition to renewable energy. There's buildings and more. But let's, with a few minutes to go before we've got time for your closings, I want to do a couple of first selectman only questions and one second selectman only question. So on the first selectman only question, and a sort of a short answer, please, for each of these, like. Where do you stand and agree and differ with if you have a national party, a national affiliation or movement, where do you differ and agree with your national platform on sustainability? So I'm going to start with the middle team. To the extent you have a national platform, please explain it.
So from the national side of things, it kind of less involvement from bigger government, bigger corporation, and more involvement from smaller local municipal levels to really push on what needs to be changed. You can't expect everything to change from the top bottom. Everything changes from this level here. And then we...
Agreed on that. Just sorry in case my question wasn't clear. It's more like to the extent you identify with a national movement, where do you agree and differ from that national movement or party? So if you're sort of purely independent, then you can save all the main strategy for the closing.
Yeah, I care about the planet, care about the earth, care about the people.
Okay. And save that for the end. That sounds great. Next up, we've got Steinberg and Seven. So where you agree and differ from your national party's platform.
Well, there couldn't be a greater contrast between the two major parties than on the issue of climate change. The Democratic Party believes in climate change. They believe in the Environmental Protection Agency. I wholeheartedly endorse the package we're trying to move forward on the federal level to deal with climate change. But this is not just parties or the nation. This is a global issue. We all have to come together on this in a way in which we're not doing currently. And that means everybody accepting the science and being prepared to do something at every level, not just government, but individual citizens.
Thank you. And Mr. Kerr.
I believe in climate change.
That is certainly a difference.
Yes, it is.
Enough said.
I could go on, but that is, I think that is.
All you
Right.
need to say.
Second selectman only question. Just want to say, to which extent, in any great team, there's a yin and yang here. Where do you feel that your first selectman candidate is strong on sustainability, and where do you help them out? So with that, I'm going to start with Candace.
Well, I honestly could not have a more outstanding partner than Jonathan on the issue of the environment. I mean, really in every way, but in particular on the issue of the environment. As I mentioned in my opening statement, he has been a leader in the state of Connecticut, widely recognized and lauded for his environmental leadership and effectiveness in passing legislation to protect all of us in terms of the environment. So I am just happy to be on his team, and I am here to help in any way that I can. I have done my part on the Board of Education to move forward on environmental initiatives, and I will help move these items forward when we are elected to the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Andrea.
From my work with Jen over the last several years and my role on the Board of Finance when she's been second selectman, I am confident in her understanding of the issues facing the town in this arena. She's been involved in a lot of the initiatives that have happened in the past. She has good ideas for the future in terms of where can't come up with something in terms of where we differ. For example, I also believe in climate change. So I think we are both excited about the opportunities for the future and moving Westport to the next phase.
I could not have gotten a better question. So Mr. Elgin is an organic local community farmer that lives his life about being environmentally friendly, sustainability, worried about sustainability, and being green. By talking to him and meeting him, he makes me want to be a better person by helping our environment. He is so incredibly passionate about this, and I know for sure as Selectman, he will make this on top of his agenda and a priority. With what I can bring to the table, really, is my business experience, such as he has. We can help utilize our small businesses to help make a movement to be better in our environment. He is the guy that you want for this, really. I'm really happy to be working with him.
And how are you helping him? Oh, time's up. You used it all on him. Great. We've done a little tour here. It's all about now. I think it's about like how to make it happen, and then we've got a rapid fire and then close. So I've got one question on making it happen. I think the middle team mentioned about the Resilience Commission you set up in the first 90 days. I'm looking for thoughts on having a sustainability director as a standalone position, given our spread very thin town staff, with our operations director trying so hard to help us, the head of Department of Public Works having a bit of their role on this. What are your thoughts on a sustainability director? And I will start that with Team Tucker.
Great, thank you. So how we are structured right now in Town Hall is around issues of sustainability, is that there is strong leadership from the top, and then we've asked every single town department head to view their operation both from a long-term standpoint and long-term capital investments, as well as on an operational, budgetary annual operational basis through a sustainability lens. And and they have a lot of autonomy with which to handle those.
So that was your time's up. Yes, no.
That was fast.
It was fast.
That's rapid fire.
Yeah, we all agree.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you went to the rapid bits.
Awesome.
This was more like, yeah, it's sort of in between. Just getting thing like, would you support the hiring of a sustainability director or not? Yes, 60 seconds is good. So I got another few seconds just to wrap up the thought. Sorry for interrupting your flow too.
That's okay. So I do feel confident with the way we currently think about and handle sustainability issues. But I would happily entertain a conversation with a group of people to help me better understand what focus a sustainability czar would bring that we aren't currently doing right now in Town Hall.
Thank you. Sustainability director. What's your thoughts?
Thank you.
I do believe that we can appropriate funding for that. As long as the director has a good group of people as their team, I feel like that's a great idea. If their sole purpose is to change Westport sustainability for the best it can be, that could reduce the time frame from 2050 drastically. If their sole purpose is going section by section to Westport and figuring out what the best things that can be done.
Well, from my viewpoint, the current approach is not working, which is why we want to create the role of Director of Economic and Community Development. They have one in Fairfield, and by the way, part of his portfolio is to talk about sustainability, resilience issues, flooding, things of that sort. It's a natural fit with those responsibilities because it's the intersection of economic and community activities. I believe that would be an appropriate role.
Great, so it's part of that role that you just mentioned. Great, thank you very much. So now we are on to, Tony and I are back in sync, because the quickfire is the quickfire round before closing comments. So closing comments are next, so therefore the rules are fairly strict here. Less than 5 words, less than 5 seconds. Wow. Okay? And then anything else you go, oh, I have to say something about this, it's like, no. It's in your closing comments. So less than 5 words and less than 5 seconds, we'll do climate change.
Me? Okay. Climate change, we need to be better. We need to get better.
That's it.
We need to act immediately.
It's everybody's responsibility.
It's a huge problem for right now.
It is urgent.
Everybody said everything I wanted to say.
That's okay, that's 5 words.
No, I can figure something out. This is all of our issue to address together.
Thank you. Greenhouse gas inventory, so that we actually know where we're starting from. Would you fund one?
I didn't understand the question.
Greenhouse gas inventory. Like, where are we starting from in terms of greenhouse gases? We need to know where we're starting. Like, if we want to get to 0, we don't know how much the town currently emits. So one of the problems facing a climate action plan, facing anything like getting to zero, is saying, well, where are we starting?
So that would be something that the Director of Sustainability would be appropriate for, and building out the team and
Sure, so you're putting on to the sustainability director, that's fine, more than 5 words.
sorry.
Would you fund the sort of counting of the inventory?
We need an effective baseline.
Yep.
We need to look at best practices in similar communities and follow that.
We need an effective baseline.
It's worth a discussion.
Okay.
Start from somewhere.
Yeah, great, thank you. Solar on schools, roofs, and solar car park shading, are we going to see it in your first term?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Are you asking both?
Yes. I'm saying yes, both. And, there was an and in the question.
So, sorry, can you
So,
repeat
so,
it?
so solar on school roofs and solar car park shading, can we see that, will we be able to see those in your first term?
Yes to the first.
Okay.
Yes to the first.
We said this already.
I need to know more about the second.
Okay, excellent. Your overall agenda, I'm going to start this middle time saying, so outside the sustainability debate, where does sustainability come? And you've got 5 words, so you've got potentially 5 priorities here. Where's sustainability in the overall political agenda?
It's integrated into all things.
It's comprehensive, it's top 3.
It is a part of every decision we make.
Agree with Jen.
A main priority.
Main priority.
Number one thing we must do.
Okay. Excellent. So net zero by 2050 was obviously, we said was too far away, but I just need a year now in this rapid fire round. We had 2030, so I'm skipping you because you said 2030, if that's all right. You're nodding. So a year.
I think we need to focus on the interim goal of 2025.
Interim goal, 2025.
As soon as possible.
There needs to be a little science backing up this answer.
Yep, okay, that's fine. That's an answer.
Yeah.
2030. I
2030.
concur.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everybody. Wanted to get the juices flowing for you for your final comments. Thank you so much for answering the questions. We now have a 2-minute closing. Everyone has a 2-minute closing. And obviously, if you, especially on the second segment, if you don't have the full 2 minutes, that would be great looking at the clock. But if you do, then we'll respect that, and hopefully people at home will stay with us as well. So we're going to go in the same order as we started. So it's Team Jen to kick us off.
All right.
And I'm starting.
Great.
Great. Once again, I'd like to thank the Westport Library, Earthplace, and Sustainable Westport for hosting this tonight, and everybody who came out to watch us in person as well as people online. Thank you for moderating, and welcome to the new folks in the middle for joining us, the directors of Sustainable Westport. Westport has made some significant moves forward in addressing a broad array of environmental issues, and there are more investments and initiatives on the horizon. But it is clear from our discussion tonight, we have more work to do, and we are all committed to addressing sustainability and pressing environmental issues. Creating an updated plan to become a net zero community within a tighter time frame and executing that plan will take significant coordination, collaboration, and education within our community. We have discussed many areas tonight that need to be addressed. These are complicated issues that need to be focused on. Execution involves many town departments, commissions and boards, citizens, and business owners. We need the right leader to listen, make decisions, and work collaboratively with stakeholders. I am confident that the Tuckermore team is that team. We have the management expertise, the relevant local government experience, and the right temperaments to lead our town through this critical time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, again, thank you very much to the Westport Library, to Earthplace, and to Sustainable Westport, and Peter for your excellent moderating skills. The job of the first selectman is an executive management job. It's the CEO of the town, and it is essential that our next first selectman is a proven leader with the management skills to oversee multiple direct reports, hundreds of employees, and a multi-million-dollar budget. And I'm the only candidate with the necessary experience for this job. I've held various executive leadership roles during my 22-year career with Jen Rhee, and additionally, my service in local government, the Board of Ed, the Board of Finance, the Conservation Commission, and now as your second selectwoman makes me the best qualified candidate. I've been a part of the leadership team that has led the efforts to achieve net zero by 2050, from building over 5 miles of sidewalks to converting town-owned streetlights to LED, from purchasing the first Tesla police car to setting up a composting operation in the town transfer station. We have worked collaboratively with Sustainable Westport, Earthplace, Wakeman Town Farm, Westport Farmers Market, both garden clubs, the Westport Community Garden, and many more organizations to achieve a sustainable CT bronze certification with hopes of achieving silver certification. But more importantly, this work is critical to the future of Westport, to the future of our community and our economy. It's no accident that Westport is one of the best places to live, work, and play in the region. It takes leadership, it takes experienced leadership. Andrea and I are honored to have served as part of the team that has made this happen, and together we will take Westport to new heights. Vote Took or More on November 2nd.
Thank you. Elgin and D'Onofrio.
Thank you. I would like to, first of all, thank everyone, all of you for hosting and allowing us to be on the stage and debate. And I appreciate our candidates that are running against us for having a nice civil debate. First of all, our ticket from the get-go, from running, has been put our environment as the top priority. It is one of the things that we truly both feel passionate about, and one thing that we have a lot in common about. One thing is true, we're not career politicians. We're not politicians in our town. I've worked as the director of clinical care at our regional health department during our pandemic. That experience does say a lot about me and my character, and also me being a healthcare provider. Mr. Elgin being a business owner and a sustainable farmer that grew multiple farms throughout the community. We know what it takes. We know what it takes to manage. We know what it takes to balance budgets and trim the fat off those budgets if we need to when the economy gets tough. We're here today asking for a historic change to occur in our town. We don't want a career politician. Let's make a true change. Let's vote for people that are real, true Westporters that have your intentions at heart. Mr. Elgin already said he's going to make a donation of the selectman pay raise to help our local nonprofits. He wants to put his money where his mouth is. He wants to help you. We both want to help you, and that's why we're doing this. We're asking just for a chance. We're asking for those people, the hundreds of people have been emailing, calling, texting us, Facebook messaging us, supporting us, telling us they want us to win. We feel the votes are there. We probably just need a few more to win. And we're asking all of you, if you want environmental change on day one, when you vote for us, you'll get that. Thank you.
My name's TJ Elgin. I grew up in this town from Kings Highway through Staples, and I've seen and heard a lot of things. And we need drastic changes now based off all the environmental factors going on. I believe I'm best fit for the job because I actually take care of plants, people, and everything around me on a regular basis, from trees down to the mycelium network. I believe that putting us in charge, we could see a full greener Westport very quickly, and we can build Westport to the best possible means.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, again, to the Westport Library, to Sustainable Westport, and to Earthplace for hosting us this evening. Here at home in Westport and in Hartford, Jonathan Steinberg is a leading voice for our community. He has passed over 100 pieces of legislation to benefit all Westporters, and he is someone who gets it done, and that's why I wanted to run with Jonathan. We share a passion for public service, and we share a record of effective leadership that gets results. The first selectman's job is, of course, partly a management job, that's true. But Jonathan is extremely experienced as a corporate executive with over 20 years of experience in management at Mount Sinai Hospital, at Revlon, at Bristol Myers, and at a large senior care organization. So he certainly has the business experience piece in place. But more than that, this job is about leadership. It's about moving the community forward. It's about taking a stand and doing what's right for the community. In the area of environmental legislation, Jonathan is a widely recognized leader across the state. He has a vision for moving our community forward. He understands the problem, and he has understood the problem for decades and has worked vociferously on our behalf to pass legislation to protect us. He knows what needs to be done locally in our community, and he's ready to step up to make it happen. As I mentioned earlier, our priorities include proactively fortifying our critical infrastructure against the effects of climate change, investing in effective public transportation to reduce emissions and traffic, protecting our groundwater from dangerous chemicals, and helping our community reach its goal of net zero. Jonathan Steinberg is the most visionary, the most knowledgeable, the most well-connected, the most effective, and the most experienced environmental advocate that our community could have. And for that reason and so many more, I ask you to support him on November 2nd.
I almost don't wish to comment after that lovely speech. If you believe in climate change, and I'm relieved to hear that everybody on this stage does, if you really care about the environment, if you believe that Westport can and must do more, there really is only one choice, which is the Steinberg Savin ticket. We're not going to slow walk ideas. We're not going to say, we'll see what we can do. We're going to take action. We're going to be leaders, and Candace was absolutely right. Managerial is only part of this job. It's leadership. It's what you stand for. It's what you seek to accomplish on behalf of the citizens of this community. We want to be a model to other towns, as we used to be. We want to be an example to our citizens on what they can do. Because if we're going to combat climate change, you can't be afraid to do the right thing. Doing the right thing is what leadership is really about. Taking action, leading by example, not equivocating, not pleasantries. The environment must matter to all of us. Yes, it's urgent, and it has been urgent for some time. If the environment really matters to you, vote for Steinberg 7 on November 2nd. Thank you to the library, to Earthplace, to Sustainable Westport for everything you do and have done on behalf of this community and for the environment. We need your help, and we need every citizen to get behind this as well. Thank you.
Great. Well, to the extent it's going to be a raucous applause here. Thank you for everyone at home that we can't hear, but all the audience for the candidates. Thank you. It's a small select crew in COVID times. Our purpose here tonight was to inform, to educate, which is our purpose all through the year, but also to help you sort of inform and educate on the choices you've got upcoming ahead, which are very important, and hopefully try and put a little bit of daylight between the candidates to the extent you see things you like, and they didn't have the time to explore it all here. Please check out their detailed platforms on their respective websites. We also have the recording posted. It will be on the library website, and it'll also be on sustainablewestport.org for distribution and for you to check out if there's anything else that you think you missed. If you want to get involved, and as this is to the town in general, please do volunteer. We need the volunteers. You heard from all the town needs volunteers. Whoever wins, I think that message was clear, that the support from organizations like Sustainable Westport, Earthplace, and the library are critical in this. So do get involved, do get in touch with our new co-directors at sustainablewestport.org. If you didn't see your issue being debated, your hot issue being debated, and that's almost even more reason to get involved and volunteer, so that it becomes part of our radar, and we create working groups around the things that you care about that we couldn't get to today. Last two pieces, really, just if you covet the water bottles that are sitting on the table that are reusable, then we are accepting reasonable donations through, again, contact us through Sustainable Westport, and I think they're also at Earthplace's shop. shop as well up on Woodside Lane. But if all you want to do today is just follow us all, we're all on social media and all the details on the websites. So we look forward to this journey to net zero by a year very much sooner than 2050 together. Thank you very much, and thanks all at home. Cheers.
Thank you.